ಗುಡ್ ಮಾರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಆಲ್. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಈ ದಿನ ನಾವು ಕಾಗ್ನಿಷನ್ ಎಂಬ ಒಂದು ಸೈಕಲಾಜಿಕಲ್ ಆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕೆಲವು ವಿಚಾರಗಳನ್ನ ತಿಳಿಯೋಣ. ಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಟ್ರೈ ಟು ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾಗ್ನಿಷನ್ and some of the ideas which I am going to explain to you. I request you to remember. This will help you to write your examinations. Let's put a small question like, what is cognition? Cognition refers to mental activity that involves in acquisition, storage, retrieval, use of knowledge. That means cognition includes most of the things that we normally encounter without our knowledge, like acquisition of knowledge from the nature, from the surroundings, and all these things we require what is called cognition. Cognition happens in the brain. Which part of the brain does cognition is very complex. I would like to say simply every part of the human body is involved in receiving signals from outside. These signals get into the brain and then we call that acquisition, and then stored in the brain. Retrieval happens, that means we get it back, and we use the knowledge for various purposes. All that includes what we call the mental processes. Cognition includes perception, memory, imagery, language programming, problem solving, information processing, reasoning, decision making. That means we shall be doing all these activities in our daily activities. So we call such a process that happens inside the brain is known as cognition. Different branches of psychology are there for you to study. Cognitive psychology deals with the human behaviors. Human behaviors means how we behave, what happens. Behavior changes from person to person. Even in the family, if there are 4 members or 2 members, even husband and wife, their behaviors are different. How these behaviors happens depends upon your cognitive processes. It is based on the mental structure and processes. Craig in 1991 has told that. It uses behavioral approach, other approaches like Gestalt approach, Piaget's approach, Noam Chomsky's approach, information processing approach, mental representation of the world and experiences, neurosciences, PDP approach, parallel, DP approach, EIA concepts. All these approaches are currently used in explaining human behaviors in cognitive psychology. Cognitive psychology is a branch of psychology that deals with the mental processes or cognition. Let us try to understand the first and the foremost important mental activity or cognition called perception. Now the question is, what is perception? Perception is the process by which an individual selects, organizes, and interprets stimuli. Stimuli means from whatever we get from outside is called stimuli, into a meaningful and coherent picture of the world. That means we get a picture of the world in the brain, inside the brain, and that is called cognition of the world. It is cognitive process by which people attend to incoming stimuli and organize and interpret them into behavior. That means if you look at a very bright light of the motorcycle or a car, immediately close your eyes with your hand or go away or close your eyes. All that is, the light is the stimuli and the reaction is the closing of the eye, and that is the behavior, your behavior. So behavior depends upon the incoming stimuli. As a psychology student, you shall know what is stimuli and what is perception. Let us try to understand one simple question like, what is the nature of perception? Perception is the process by which an individual gives meaning to the environment. People's actions, emotions, thoughts, and feelings are triggered by their perceptions of their surroundings. When I say surroundings, it may be nature, it may be family, it may be social circumstances, or it may be anything that you participate, or you listen, or you see, or you just be there, and that picture comes to you through perception. That means unless you understand and imagine that, store it in the brain, retrieve it, you will not be able to understand what is happening. What is happening is perception. To understand what is happening is perception. Perception has been defined in a variety of ways. If you look at the psychology and if you look at cognitive behaviors and cognition in a book, you find perception is defined in various ways. We will not dwell into that one. It is a very, very complicated process, but we understand that perception happens in the brain. Perception is almost automatic process and works in the same way within each individual, yet it typically yields different perceptions. What does this mean? It happens automatically and works in the same way within each individual. Every brain in the human body, living body, has the same processes involved in perception, but each individual given in a situation will change their behavior. To give meaning to the word perception, here is a famous picture. It is normally used by Tenali Ramakrishna's story. There are 2 plus 2, 4, 6 people. 6 people are all blindfolded, or they are blind people, and in front of them there is an elephant which you can see, and each person is made to touch one part of the elephant and then ask them to explain how the elephant looks like. Now look at this beautiful picture. Elephant is the same animal. If you open your eyes, you can see elephant in a different way. If you close your eyes and only touch one part of it, one person might feel elephant is like a cylinder, elephant is like a tube, elephant is like a trunk of the tree, elephant is like a big rock, elephant is like a tail. So different people feeling in different parts of the elephant will interpret elephant in different ways when they are blindfolded or when they are blind people. But an ordinary, common, regular person who can see can understand elephant is an animal. So this is how the perception works. Each individual receives the stimuli in different ways and stores in the brain in different ways, recollects it or retrieves it in a different way and interprets that in a different way, and that means its behavior is very different. Each individual differs in a different way in the same process. Perception depends upon the characteristics of the perceiver. Perceiver is a person who receives it or who perceives it. Several characteristics of the perceiver can affect perception. When an individual looks at a target and attempts to interpret what he or she stands for, the interpretation is heavily influenced by the personal characteristic of the individual perceiver. What are those personal characteristics? Attitude, motives, interest, experience, expectation, self-concept, and what you believe in yourself. That means an individual has his own character, his own personality, his own his own perception. So the perception depends upon the individual character. So therefore, when you want to explain perception, you must try to understand mental activities like attitude, motives, interests, experience, expectation, and self-concept. Now, you can dwell into this later on in your textbook about perception and try to understand what are the theories, what are the ideas about the perception. Credits. To prepare this small video, I have used a textbook called Cognition by Margaret W. Matlin and taken some information from Bing and a picture from Creative Commons, some ideas on ChatGPT. My next PPT presentation will be on memory. I hope you will get the very basic ideas about perception, and next PPT will be on memory, which explains STM called short-term memory and LTM called long-term memory. Thank you for watching this video.